Mike Gallagher.
For prosperity, and there's a very good reason for that. I am so grateful for the work AFP is doing to make sure that the Trump tax cuts do not expire. Let's welcome to our program Ashley Klingensmith, who's Regional Vice President for Americans for Prosperity. Ashley, I know we're going to talk about tax day around the corner, but first, you've got Pennsylvania roots. I mean, you worked for the majority whip of the Senate of PA. You joined the Pennsylvania chapter for AFP back in 2014. What Governor Josh Shapiro experienced is unimaginable, unthinkable, horrific. An arsonist attempting to kill Governor Shapiro and his family. I got to believe Pennsylvanians that's all they must be talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. There is no space, no room in public debate for anything that looks remotely like what we saw last night in Harrisburg. And our entire team is praying for the family, thinking about them. And, we've experienced entirely too much violence, unfortunately, here in the Commonwealth the past few months, and pray this is the end of it and that cooler heads prevail. Absolutely.
Well, it's horrifying because, people are going to get mad at me for trying to politicize something like this, because you're right, there's no space for this, there's no room for this anywhere. But if the media reports are true, this guy is not exactly a Trump supporter. And if that's, in fact, he had some grief, some beef about his home supposedly being repossessed. But the fact is, many on the left have tried to normalize violence. They've made a hero out of this, this monster coward who allegedly assassinated the CEO of United Healthcare. I saw a big prominent former Washington Post columnist talk about him being moralistic and, he's a fighter and was standing up to, and we know what happened in the Summer of Love. The left seems to kind of embrace acts of violence. Believe me, if this was a guy wearing a MAGA hat and tried to burn down the governor's mansion, that's all we'd be hearing about in the media.
On either side, there is just no space, no room to give any of this air, and you've got to call it out, and you've got to commit as a society, as a Commonwealth, to doing better. And
Amen.
I think that we are just so grateful that there is no injuries and that everyone's okay. And again,
Amen.
It is time to take a hard pivot away from this unfortunate display of action. It's just
Absolutely
not how we do things in America. It's not how we do business, and it's certainly not how we scale our displeasure or opposition to any kind of given politician or policy.
Absolutely. Well, we're all praying for Governor Shapiro, his family, and the everybody in the Commonwealth. Let's talk about protectprosperity.com is a site that everybody needs to be aware of today. I want everybody to remember protectprosperity.com, because House Republicans just adopted the Senate's framework to extend Trump's tax cuts, the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act. And Ashley, you guys at AFP are front and center in making sure that these tax cuts don't expire. Can you walk us through what AFP is doing and how our audience can help?
Yes, absolutely. So we launched Protect Prosperity national campaign back in January, on January 13th, but we've been working on this legislation since 2017, since this was passed. And tomorrow is a real inflection point for grassroots to rally with a unified voice in calling on Congress to make these a priority, the extension of these tax cuts a priority on tax day. Look, it is painful every year, and tomorrow is no exception. But it could be even worse in 2026 if these are not extended. We're talking about a $4 trillion tax hike over the next decade. So we want to meet people where they are. Our heartbeat at Americans for Prosperity is grassroots. So tomorrow on tax day, 60 events happening across 30 states nationwide, Some of those will be in congressional districts where members have taken the great votes. They're supporting extending these tax cuts. So we're going to give them some air cover, some reinforcement. And then conversely, we're going to be on the ground in over 24 congressional districts where members have failed to offer their support to this important legislation. Hold their feet to the fire, hold them accountable, and ensure they feel some heat. So you're going to see some great things, LED trucks traversing cities like Atlanta and more, and it's going to be a great day.
This is what you guys do better than anybody. This is why we really appreciate Americans for Prosperity. Because look, if this is successful, lawmakers will head into the midterms with great economic growth, consumer confidence, a lot of momentum, and you can be a part of this effort. As you're hearing Ashley Klingensmith, Regional Vice President for Americans for Prosperity, go to protectprosperity.com to take action, because that's what you're all about. AFP is all about grassroots, and there is a very tangible way that everybody in our audience can get involved.
That's exactly right. And I want to tell you, we are on the ground knocking doors right now in 19 critical congressional districts. We'll be out tomorrow for sure. But we are connecting members. And listen, there's 535 between the Senate and the House that we've got to impact, right? And so we need the audience's help. Again, that website, protectprosperity.com, has some great resources there. You can share your story about how you've benefited from this legislation. Also, interactive map where you can see how this legislation impacted your state specifically with respect to businesses, jobs, and just kind of take home pay. But I'll tell you, this is a real impact for real people. I just visited. Yeah.
Amazing stuff. We're on a hard break here, but great work, Ashley Klingensmith. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. Everybody needs to go to protectprosperity.com, protectprosperity.com. Ashley, keep fighting the good fight. We appreciate you joining us here on The Mike Gallagher Show.
For full shows, live and on demand, it's Salem News Channel.